Good afternoon, Namibia, and welcome to another session here at the Government Information Center. I am Shianwa Desire Kahiha, and I'm your host for this afternoon. The topic for this afternoon, we are looking at the role of the Public Service Commission, and this is with regards to the employment process, transfers, translations, and promotions in government. But before we get to that, let us first give the opportunity to our Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, who is the Minister in the Ministry of Health and Social Services, to give us the COVID update for yesterday. Good afternoon, Doctor. How are you?
Good afternoon. And how are you?
We are well, Doctor. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, panelists. Good afternoon, fellow Namibians. I'm going to present the COVID-19 report for the 24th of April 2022. We have received 616 results from the laboratories during the past 24 hours reporting cycle. And out of those, 24 have tested positive for COVID-19, giving us a 3.9% positivity ratio. The cases are distributed as such: 13 males and 13 males and 10 females, plus 1 reinfection. The age range from 3 years to 59 years. They as follow: Commerce 15 from Windhoek district, Erongo 3 from Swakopmund, Ochodonjupa, 2 from Okahanja, and 1 from Ochiwarongo. Among the confirmed cases, there are 2 learners not from one school and also 1 student. One of the cases have received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccines. 3 are fully vaccinated. 1 has received a booster dose, and 20 of them are not vaccinated. We have recorded recoveries from 2 regions, with Karas having recorded 3 and Ochodonjupa 2. The number of active cases is now 514. 4 of them are currently hospitalized. No one is admitted in ICU, but all the hospitalized cases have not been vaccinated. They as follow: in Commerce, we have got 3 admissions, and in Zambezi, 1 admission. We have not recorded any death during the period under review. By the 23rd of March 2022, a total of 454,023 people aged 18 years and above have received 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine, which represent 31% of the adult population, targeted adult population. A total of 136,573 have received Johnson & Johnson vaccine, while 259,463 adults have received the 2 doses of other vaccine types. Therefore, 396,036 adults have completed the vaccination schedule, translating into 27% of the target adult population. 19,360 children aged 12 years and 17 years, between 12 and 17 years, have received 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine, which represents 6.3% of the target population. And of this, 6,706 are fully vaccinated. Hence, the cumulative number of people vaccinated with the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine for both adult and children is now 773,800 383, of which 402,742 are fully vaccinated, translating into 23.0% of the total target population. 51,300 people have received the booster dose. In terms of summary, since the beginning of the pandemic to date, a total number of 158,379 individuals have tested positive for COVID-19. Among them, 156,002 individuals have recovered, giving us a recovery rate of 98.5%. We have recorded, since the beginning of the pandemic, 3,691 COVID deaths, with additional 334 COVID-related deaths, giving us a total number of deaths to date of 4,025. Impressively, so far we have tested 1,02,457 samples since the beginning of the pandemic, which actually gives us the ratio of the rate of 400 per thousand population. It's one of the highest testing rate on the African continent. The number of people currently in quarantine is 267. Before I conclude the report, may I again employ the public to take up vaccination, those who have not yet been vaccinated, as we are entering winter time with a possibility of an upsurge in infection. Therefore, forewarned is forearmed. Let us take up the vaccination while it's still early. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, for the update there. And we do share your sentiments that people should start taking care of themselves again for us to avoid an upsurge that we cannot control and that has dire consequences. So please be reminded to make sure that you disinfect your surfaces, you sanitize your hands, and practice the social distancing. Have a good afternoon, Doctor. Getting back to our topic for the afternoon, as we said, we are looking at the role of the Public Service Commission with regards to employment processes, transfers, translations, and promotions in government. And in studio, I have two representatives from the Public Service Commission Secretariat. One is Ms. Inga Daningina. Good afternoon, ma'am. She is the Deputy Director for Staffing in the Public Service Commission Secretariat. Thank you for being with us. We also have Mr. Shirorwa Shihambuma, and he is the Director for the Public Service Commission Secretariat. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Afternoon, and thank you for having me.
And we kick it straight off with Mr. Shihambuma, and we want to know what motivated the establishment of the Commission. What are some of its roles and its ethos that guide the operations of the Commission? And if any, what are the legislative frameworks that governs the Commission?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. The Public Service Commission was established in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia. Article 112 indicate that the Public Service Commission shall be established and it shall be an independent and it's required to be impartial body. The role of the Public Service Commission is to advise government and the President and the government on human resource management in the public service. And in terms of the Article 112 that I referred to earlier, indicate that there shall be the minimum, a chairperson and three commissioner, and a maximum of chairperson and not more than 6 commissioners. And these people are nominated by the president and are appointed by parliament by resolution. So in terms of their functions, when you go to Article 113 of the Constitution, it stipulates the function of the commission, and the role, as indicated, is to advise government, especially with regard to appointment of suitable person in the certain job category in the public service, with special regard to balance structuring thereof. In addition, the Public Service Commission is to ensure exercise of adequate disciplinary control over the public service to assure fair and administrative personnel policy. And also, the Public Service Commission also do recommend the remuneration of public service, and also can also advise on any matter pertaining to public service management in the public service. And then with regard to the part of your question when you ask about the specific legal instruments that guide the function of the commission, as indicated, number one is the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia. And then apart from that one, we have the Public Service Commission Act 2 of 1990. And then apart from that, for staff members who are in government ministries, offices and agency, we have Public Service Act 13 of 1995. And for staff members who are in Regional Council, we have Regional Council Act of 1992, Act 22 as amended. And then apart from that, we also have Public Service Act 2 of 1980. And then other legal instrument we have also, the Commission is guided by the Labour Act 11 of 2007. And then apart from that, we have the Affirmative Action Act 29 of 1998. And then apart from that, we also have staff rules that also guide the human resource management in public service. Okay. So I think basically I have answered what you asked earlier.
Yeah.
And Public Service Commission is a bit of fairness in the public service, in the staff member in public service, and we are guided by professionalism, confidentiality, integrity, and transparency.
Yeah.
So whatever we are doing, we make sure that we are consistent, we are not maybe favoring certain people. So basically, I think I've answered your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any material with regards to, let's say, civic education that has, should I say detailed or explained what you just answered now?
Yes, we have some pamphlets that indicate the role of the Public Service Commission. But apart from that, before COVID, we used to participate in trade shows and shows to create awareness about the function of the public service, and also to give opportunity to staff members if they have, for instance, queries or they want to come and find out about the provision of certain rules. So we used to do that.
Okay.
So, but now it depends on how we are going. If this situation improves, I'm sure we will start going back and do that. But what we are doing also, we have stakeholder engagement.
Okay.
But basically, this one is more on OMAS and regional council, where, for instance, the commission go out and meet the accounting officers, management of the ministry, maybe being on a specific issue of that particular ministry, or also to clarify or to listen from the ministry side what are the issues or what are the challenges they are experiencing.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
The next question that we have is pertaining to employment, the process thereof. What is the standard process for hiring when it comes to government, and why is it necessary for applicants to go through a written and then an oral test process through the selection process?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, in the public service, appointment, promotion and transfers is done in terms of Section 5 of the Public Service Act 1995, Act 13 of 1995, as Alfred has already alluded to that. And that's where it gives the power for the Commission to recommend and then the Prime Minister approve. Bear in mind that the Prime Minister is the employer in the public service. But apart from that also, we have got a recruitment policy framework that guides the process, in the recruitment process in the public service. And that's where when the post is advertised, applicants go through interviews and then they are being subjected to, yes, they are subjected to the interviews and the best candidate is selected from that. Yeah, maybe just before to come to the second question of the written test, in terms of the regional council, they have got their own act, that is Act of 22 of 1992, where the Commission is also given the power to recommend. However, the Prime Minister in this case is not the employer. So the Prime Minister does not have the power to approve the recommendation of the Commission. So the recommendation of the Commission in case of the Regional Council is approved by the Council. Yeah, the second question, or the second part of the question with regard to the written test is twofold, if I might put it that way. There are some positions in the public service that require applicant or candidate to be subjected to written test. A good example that I can give is like public relations officers and private secretaries, because of the skill that is needed in those positions. And the second part is that a written test is used to reduce the number of applicants. I think you might be aware that now, when positions are advertised, we receive a big number of applicants. And it's a way of minimizing. Ministries and regional council have come up with a strategy to reduce the numbers. So in a way, applicants are subjected to a written test before they go for the oral interview. Thank you.
Okay. Is this process applicable to all positions?
Yes.
And to all OMAs?
Yes, it's applicable to
So
all.
from the very top, what do we call it, management cadre, all the way down to the bottom, they go through the exact same process
Yes, that's
of
correct.
hiring?
Yes.
Okay. What determines the channel of advertisement that the government uses to advertise vacancies within the government? Why are some government positions, we find them being advertised on notice boards in offices and others are placed in newspapers? What determines which type of method of advertising is to be used? And then is this process again applicable to all the positions? And also, many of us are familiar with what we call the public vacancy circular. Is this accessible to the public, or who is it supposed to be for?
Yes, coming to the second question, yes, the channel of advertising of position in the public service, it just depends from ministry to ministries, office and regional councils in terms of the skills and experts that they need.
Okay.
If the skill that they need is within the public service, then the post will be advertised internal. However, if the post is advertised internal and that skill could not be found inside, then they go outside. But I need to make it clear to say, as for now, you refer to the internal or the public service circular for vacancies. As from 2019-2020 there, our public service circular for vacancies is now open to public.
Okay.
Yes, it's now open to public.
Okay.
And that's not the only medium of advertising. We also do advertise through newspapers and all other platforms.
Okay. But for example, as we had as an example earlier on, some are posted on notice boards and never found in a newspaper. And clearly, for example, if some of this thing is posted, let's say, at a notice board at the ministry or at the office of the Auditor General, and their office is sitting in BPI House, where you almost don't have any traffic, is that really a fair manner of advertising?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what happened is that basically all promotion posts are being advertised. That's a fact. But with regard to entry posts, these like cleaners, these are normally that you will find on notice board in specific OMAs and regional council. The reason being that these are, the moment you put it out in the media, it will end up attracting a lot of people. But still, it doesn't mean that when it's on the notice board, it's only restricted or limited to staff members in that particular ministry. Whoever picked up that notice, being a member from a general public, can apply.
But it goes back to the question that I just had. If you have minimal traffic going through that particular office, is it really open to the public, or is it open to those that are attached to those that are moving within or around the vicinity of these notice boards?
Because what we have noticed of late, even if it's on notice board, the next moment you find it on a social media. You know, people do circulate some of these vacancies, but I do understand your concern that maybe we need to do more to make it accessible to everyone, no matter what level the position is. So maybe we'll take note of that and then we'll take it up with our...
I go back to Ms. Inga. Earlier on you said the onus is on every single ministry with regards to an identified position to ensure that, you know, they try and find a way to fill it with existing staff members, if it's on promotional level. And then only if that skill is not found within the existing structures of government, if I understood you correctly, then it is advertised. They apply for the advertising of that position. Did I understand that correctly?
Maybe just to make it clear, it's just to say that was only happening in the past.
Okay.
But as for now, since our circular is open to the public, so everybody can just apply, irrespective whether the skill is inside or not.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back to that one a bit later on.
Okay.
Please, you are reminded as our viewers that you can take part in the conversation here in the studio. We are live streaming from our social media platforms through which you can give us your comments and questions. On Facebook, we are at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. And on YouTube, our handle there is MICT Namibia. MICT Namibia. Moving on to our next question while we wait for you to partake in our conversation. When is it necessary to recruit serving employees for positions, and when is it necessary to invite the public to apply for this position? I think you already gave us an idea or answered that particular question. Then we move on to the next one. Is there a time limit to which positions should be filled, or in which positions should be filled before and after that position is advertised? If yes, can you please explain to us what that time limit is and the possible consequences to an institution when they do not meet these timelines?
Yes. In terms of our recruitment policy framework, which I have just mentioned earlier, there is a time frame of 12 months.
Okay.
So from the date of the advert, the post should be filled within 12 months.
Okay.
And if an OMA or regional council did not adhere to that 12 months, then there must be a reason why. They need to justify why they did not complete the process within 12 months. Yes, when case come to the commission, we do look at the cases and look at the reason. Because sometimes you will find that a position is just deliberately delayed. And then they will come and ask for re-advertisement. So we go deeper in the case and analyze and see what was really the cause, whether this was done deliberately or it was just something that came up. A good example, like during in this time of COVID now, yes, you will find that ministry, in most cases, they are giving reason to say they could not conclude the process because of COVID. People couldn't travel because of the lockdown and so on, which is a justifiable reason.
Okay.
And in most cases, at least, they are being given either to re-advertise or to say, no, go ahead and conclude the process, although 12 months has lapsed.
Yeah, maybe in addition, like what you're saying, within 12 months, a ministry can do that either 2 or 3 months. Normally, we encourage them to start the process well in advance. For instance, if you know that someone is going to retire,
Yeah.
is due for retirement in 3 months.
Okay.
So it's better for a ministry to start the recruitment process so that by the time the person is going to exit, a replacement is found.
Okay. We've got a caller on the line. Good afternoon. How are you? And welcome to our
Good
show.
afternoon, fine, thank you. I have a comment as well as a question.
Okay.
I want to know, in all the reports which you read, you see there that the Auditor General says there in the audit, some of the audit reports, especially the one of Namibia, where I'm staying, that there are people in position which does not even qualify to be in such positions. So how do human resource management work in such manner? And when we are detecting the Auditor General's reports, who is giving attention to them and why not giving attention to them? Because that is very wrong, because you can't see people in position who does not even qualify to be interviewed, but is in that position.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other one is when it comes to advertisements, or let me go quick because I only have 60 seconds.
Okay.
When you go to affirmative action act, how do you implement such? Are you working on racial percentages? Are you working on skills percentages? Or how does that work? Can you explain how you accommodate affirmative actions or implementations within that act?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dawson. We shall place your question to the panelists in the studio. Anybody willing to take that question? There
Yeah.
are two of them.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know when he referred to that there are certain people who are occupying certain position while they don't qualify. I'm sure if there are facts on the ground, they should approach the relevant ministries and alert them so that they can take it up with the commission. Because I'm sure as far as we are concerned, from our side, he was referring to the Auditor General audit, but from our side, human resource, we have what we call human resource audit exercise that we undertake, where we go and look at staff member once they are appointed in OMAS. We ask those files, we go through the files and see whether all the documentation, for instance, qualifications are attached, are available. But if should they think that there are people who are occupying certain positions but they don't have or meet the necessary qualifications, I'm sure there are relevant institutions that are qualified to do that, for instance, ACC.
He gave a specific example there. He specifically referred to the town council of Gibeon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Let us help him. Who can he approach with
Yes.
regards to such a complaint?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the Public Service Commission, where we are from, does not have mandate over a local authority.
Okay.
Because that one he was referring to is a local authority. The commission is only limited to government offices, ministries and agencies,
Okay.
plus the regional council. So, but in that case, I'm sure if he can approach ACC and ombudsman, this will be the right institution to assist.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Dawson, I believe from what we can derive from Mr. Shirora's answer, try and approach the ACC or the Ombudsman. Maybe they will be better at guiding you at the exact channels that you can use or which offices exactly you can approach. The next point that he had, who's willing to take that question?
Okay.
Yeah. With regard to affirmative action, the way we implement it in the public service is that, or maybe let me first make reference to the Act itself, because the Act is so clear to say, in case a female, for example, if a female candidate came out successful, she must be considered for a position. And the Act, remember that the Act is referring to 3 designations. It's a previously disadvantaged woman, is a person living with disability, and then is what is the third one? Yeah, but there are three groups. So the way we do it in the public service is that when we receive a filling of a position, we look at the statistic in that specific ministry to say how many women are there, for example, in management, and how many men. But as I said, it's not an automatic to say a female candidate should just be considered. It should be based on the performance during the interview. If she performs well, then she can be considered in terms of affirmative action. I think I have put it, yeah.
Okay. We've got a comment on one of our social media platforms here, and we would like to thank John Jackson for taking part in the conversation. And John Jackson's question is saying, why is the government vacancy or recruitment process very slow? Some posts even take up to a year from the day of advert to the day of contacting interviewees. So that's the one question, and I think it connects to the previous question that we were discussing before the caller came on. You answered partially to that question. Why is it so slow?
Yes.
And in your experience, what are, besides the COVID that we had now, what are some of the other reasons that are given to you by the various ministries on why their recruitment process is taking so long?
Okay, thank you very much. Apart from sometimes it's delays from OMA's side. For instance, after they have advertised, if, for instance, the submission have to go to the Public Service Commission, what we have discovered is that sometimes they don't attach the needed documents.
Okay.
Because for us to process, and when we are analyzing and verifying, we need certain documents. So whenever we go back to ministry, sometimes there is that delay.
Okay.
And apart from that, sometimes non-adherence also to some recruitment requirements. For instance, when the advertisers need to adhere to certain requirements.
Yeah.
And then during the verification also sometimes we realize that, no, part of this was not adhered to. We need to ask for explanation, and sometimes they take time. So there are a number of issues. And sometimes after a person was interviewed, potential candidate were interviewed, they need to nominate at least 3, apart from the first highest scorer, they need to nominate alternative candidates.
Yeah.
Because what we have realized sometimes, if the nominated candidate is not available, they don't have alternatives. And as a result, it's another delay also to go back to them to say, can you please now give us or nominate now the alternative so that it can be recommended. So, but what the Commission encouraged OMAS and the Regional Council to do is to ensure that positions are filled within stipulated time frame as quick as possible. Because if they don't do that within 12 months, there are also some other risks associated with that. For instance, budgeting that were budgeted for those positions might be rediverted to other posts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was coming to that one, the consequences thereof. When budgets are redirected to other activities, how long and what is the process then that OMA has to go through to try and get that budget reallocated to that particular position?
They have to wait for the next budgeting cycle so that they are going to motivate.
Also, they have to motivate
that to Ministry of Finance, that these are the vacancies that we want to fill during this reporting period, so that the funds can be made available.
Okay.
And that's another process also.
Yeah. And then the timeline between the point of that position becoming vacant to the point at which that position is advertised. Is there a particular timeline that is given to OMAS?
It's like what I said earlier, OMAS need to be proactive. So once you know that there will be a vacancy, or once you know that you want this position to be budgeted for, you should be vigilant and make sure that once funds is made available, you immediately hit the road running and
Okay.
advertise. So we don't want them to delay, but what we need to indicate is that what we are trying to do, or what government is trying to do, is to also reduce the wage bill by making sure that before you advertise, you need to go and motivate why you want to fill that particular position. Why can you not cope with available resources, human resources?
Okay.
So before advertising, they need to go and motivate that to Secretary to Cabinet, and then once that is granted, then they can go and advertise.
But if the position is within the structure, why does one have to motivate why I can't cope without the position being filled?
Yeah, that's the same, because sometimes we want to make sure that we maximize with what we have.
Okay, so if this position is not motivated for, let's say, 2 years, does that mean then the Public Service Commission then starts a process of eliminating it or striking it from the structure?
That one also, it's not automatic that it will take it out of the structure, but it will depends, even when the ministry is going to ask for instance, creation of new posts. That's a critical question the Commission always asks. But you have this number of positions in your structure that are vacant. Why do you want to request for additional structure, positions in the structure?
Okay. In the interest of time, we'll move on. But then I'm not necessarily speaking about that request for a new position, but I'm speaking to the one that's already there. Why do I need to motivate for this, to keep, to cope? I mean, on why I cannot cope with less, appointed persons if the position is within the structure. But let's hear from Nico Dumisa Kasaona. Why is it that one, especially when working in government, one cannot apply for a promotional position due to the job grade one holds? I think that question can be answered within some of the other questions that we have here as we move on. We will definitely, Nico, we will definitely get to that particular question of yours. I just want to cluster the questions. The next question that we have from our social media platforms, we have a question from Hiangura Mu. And the question there is, would you address the issue of transfer processes within the ministry from Region A to Region B? Yes. Hiangura, we are coming to that particular question as well. And as promised, we look into those two positions. Into those two questions, pardon me. Are there any promotional possibilities in government? If yes, what are the various processes that are undertaken for this to take place?
Yes, I would say yes.
Okay.
There are promotion possibility in the public service. As we have mentioned earlier, say we have got open competition in the public service. And that means positions are advertised, you go through the interview, and the best candidate is selected.
Okay.
So then you get promoted. There's another element or another way of promoting that we call a special promotion by way of nomination.
Okay.
That by way of nomination, I mean it depends on the scarce field and the expert that a specific candidate possesses. So in this one, the post does not need to be advertised. So the ministry just need to motivate to say, yes, we lack this skill in the ministry, but we have got a candidate, a potential candidate with the skill and expert that we need, and they motivate to the commission to promote the person by way of nomination.
Okay. Then we come to the next question. What is the difference? No, before we come to that one. Open competitiveness. I remember the circular used to be internal, just within government, and many believed that that was a good way to try and promote government employees and in turn open up entry positions, because most of these positions within the circular were not entry positions. They were promotional positions.
Yes.
now you have opened this up. Is it really a fair competitiveness? Because now you find somebody who has been working in the position, highly skilled in that particular position, in that particular field, who's now competing with somebody who's coming from an institution who does not necessarily have the experience within that particular OMA, because that's the other thing that we also need to consider here. That person has been working there for 10 years. They've picked up, they know the ins and outs. And they don't necessarily have the, let's say, your doctorate degree or whatever, but they have the necessary qualification based on that advertised position. Now they need to come and sit and start teaching this person who's coming from the outside, from an institution of learning, the skills that they've learned for 10 years, and that person is their boss, but they're teaching their boss how to do the job.
No, maybe if I have to put it clear is that open competition does not necessarily mean it's open to everybody.
Okay.
You need to meet the appointment requirement or the advertisement requirement in terms of that specific positions, in terms of qualification and experience that's required for you to compete with those one who are inside.
Because in most cases, our circulars don't necessarily stipulate experience in what?
Yeah.
When applications are going out. And you also have cases of people who have studied while working. And sometimes when it comes to, let's say, the recruitment process, somebody might not necessarily be that good in verbalizing, expressing themselves in an interview, while somebody who's coming from an institution from outside is. Yet this person is actually very good at the job. In most cases has probably been acting in the position for the past 6 months, if not longer.
Yes.
So it's just little things that are experienced on a day-to-day, and I believe these are where some of these questions from our viewers are coming from. Can you tell us the difference between a transfer and a translation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe I should indicate for staff member in OMAS, and when you go to Public Service Act 13 of 1995 that I referred to earlier on, Section 23(1) stipulate that the accounting officer, in other words, the EDs, can transfer a staff member from any post to another based on the need of that particular ministry.
Okay.
So in terms of staff member in the regional council, when you go to Section 13(1) of the Public Service Act 2 of 1980, also have the same provision, but this is applicable to staff members in the regional council. But now what I need to indicate is that we no longer do translation.
Okay.
It's a vocabulary that staff members are using, but it's no longer there.
Okay.
But what we are dealing with is just transfer or promotion.
Okay.
For instance, if there is a vacancy, you are not automatically being translated, but there are certain job category, for instance, in terms of the appointment requirements, that require that after a person, for instance, have obtained certain qualification, he need to be advanced. For instance, legal officer, especially after the first entrance, after obtaining certain qualification, those ones can automatically be advanced to the next grade. But for the general position in public service, we don't have that automatic translation anymore. It's just open competition, as it was indicated.
Okay. Is that fair?
Yes, looking at the number of the unemployment rate that we are having in the public service, I mean Namibia as a whole, and also now these days, when you look today and where we were at independence, at least now we have a number of qualified people who are eligible to take up any position.
But I mean, I'm referring to that where in one OMA, you've got, for example, the example you gave where a legal officer can be, should I say, transferred, yet another OMA, you can't do the same. Why don't we have the same rules across board?
Yeah.
Well, one will say there must be a reason why it was done in such a manner. Yes, because it's very few job category that make provision for that. And in most cases, you only find it in those professional job categories, like he has mentioned, legal officer. We have another job category, meteorologist, which fall under the Ministry of Works. But it's not a transfer throughout the whole, the level. It's only from the first entry to the second. And then from there, all they need to apply.
But what determines an OMA being able to use such a movement of staff?
No. That was not one. If I have to put it clear, it's not the ministry and OMA that have determined that. Yes, it came with the WASCOM. Not sorry, with JEC, Job and Evaluation. And in terms of the PAM is crafted. As I say, there must be a reason why it was done in such a way, because it's not applicable to all job category, but only certain job category that it applies.
Okay. The next question that we have, it's speaking to experience, qualifications, and so on. Is it possible for an employee to be transferred or translated? Okay, fine. Dr. Shirorwa stated that translation is just a term that has been left with public servants, but it's no longer applicable. But is it possible then for them to move into another, through these methods, into another department, to a higher grade, or both, based on qualifications that were obtained whilst working and or experience gained while working in the current position that they have?
Yes, that's possible provided you meet. What happened is that sometimes a person might have been working in a certain job category, and then the person went out. For instance, he left the public service, he acquired certain skills, qualification, and then he came back because of maybe the unemployment rate have decided to take any other available position. But if a vacancy is available where the person meets the requirements and there is no restriction, for instance, on the other question that was asked here, I'm sure Inga will answer the one of jumping of grade. If there is no restriction of the jumping, that person can be considered. Or even what you mentioned earlier, the appointment by way of nomination. If a person is having a certain skills that is required, certain OMAs can approach the commission with motivations, and this can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a person can basically, for example, if I was, I don't know, an admin officer, for example, I can then be transferred or motivated based on qualifications acquired while I'm working as an admin officer into the position of an accountant.
Yeah, if your qualifications dictate or is in that field, especially for entry positions, position that can be done.
So I can only do that, for example, in me going into accountancy, because while I was working as an admin officer, I was acquiring a qualification. But I can only go into the entry position of accountancy within the public service.
Yes.
Even whether it's in that same OMA or whether it's in a different one.
Yes.
Okay. Our next question was basically speaking to the application for transfers or translations or promotions. If the opportunity presents itself, who's responsible for that application? Is it I, as an employee, I identify that there is a vacant position that I qualify for, or is it my supervisor or my director who is supposed to do this process?
You need to initiate the process yourself.
Okay.
And maybe what I should also state is that, like what I said earlier, accounting officer can decide when to transfer a person. But also on medical ground, the accounting officer can also consider. If, for instance, you initiate a request for a transfer because of your medical conditions, that one can be done, can be considered.
Okay.
But there is no guarantee. But also, on the other hand, if a vacancy arises, is for you to apply. Once you apply, if you become successful, then obviously automatically you will be considered. Or, for instance, if you approach your ED in advance before the post is advertised, if he's convinced, then that can also happen.
So basically the onus is on me and my proactiveness if I identify that particular position before it is advertised.
But what
I
you-
should initiate
Yes,
that process.
you should initiate, but you should also be mindful that it's also the prerogative of the ED, the
Okay.
accounting officer, to decide how he wants that particular post to be filled.
Okay.
Sometimes you will initiate the process, but you are not the only one. There are a number of other potential candidates.
Yeah.
So it might not be fair for you only to be considered. So maybe the ED will decide to say, no, that particular position will be advertised, so that all
Okay.
of you can compete, and the most suitable person will be given the opportunity.
But staying on that one, is it possible then for the ED within his structure to then say, consider not necessarily an outside advertised method of filling in the position? Let's say there are 5 or 10 applicable candidates within the ministry.
Yes.
Can he then initiate a recruitment process internally to try and fill in this position using these particular candidates that he has identified? For example, I'm not the only one. There are 9 other people that can possibly fill this position. Can he then initiate a recruitment process within the ministry where these 10 candidates then compete without him necessarily advertising? Is that allowed?
Yes. If these are entry positions, that's up to the accounting officer. But
Yes.
what she indicated earlier, all promotion posts, unfortunately, need to be advertised.
Okay.
So once it's a promotion post, it will be advertised, then all potential candidates will compete. Or alternatively, the Public Service Commission can also recommend deviations, especially from staff rule.
Okay.
If the ministry is convinced that maybe they need to deviate from that provision, they can submit a request to the commission to be granted that deviation, so that
Okay.
that can happen.
Okay. I hope this has given clarity to especially the two viewers that posted their questions with regards to the skipping of grades and transfers from one region to another. Oiva has a question here for us. The current public service employee are not allowed to jump grades when it comes to promotional post. Grade 8 cannot qualify for grade 4 despite. I believe, Oiva, we have answered this question. So if you have any more questions, I think to that regard, I think you are open to approach the Public Service Commission, and they can give you more details and clarity or further clarity to that regard. I think we have also answered the question with regards to gaps in an organogram of an institution or a department as it is identified, because we wanted to find out about is restructuring one of the solutions that is used or possibly could be used to that regard. Just quickly.
Now, what's supposed to happen once the ministry see a need to either to create additional positions or to restructure? What they need to do, they need to approach the Department of Public Service Management. It's our sister department.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will appear here on Wednesday. And then they will have that discussion with that department. And then once the department is convinced, all the facts are on the table, they will have this submission to the Public Service Commission for the commission to to recommend the creation of a certain position.
Okay.
But normally what is happening, I'm sure that during the development of strategic plan at the beginning, OMAs also need to try to identify their needs to be able to implement or to achieve what they have set for themselves.
Okay.
And then after that, they can submit their submission through the department to the commission, can be considered.
Okay.
And then also maybe one need to indicate that at the beginning of a new administration, sometimes you remember His Excellency create new OMAs or new structures in government. So what happened also, once that is done through the department, they also go and have a submission to the commission for recommendation of creation of those particular structures.
Okay. Ms. Inga, quickly, because we have run out of time, there is one last question based on observations. There's a high turnover with when it comes to certain OMAs. In your experiences, the reasons that have been brought forth, complaints that have been brought forth,
Yes.
what attributes to this? And is it maybe based on incentives or relations? Just quickly,
Yes.
what has your experience shown?
Yes, from the experience, what we have learned is that most of the people are leaving the public service just for green pasture. Yes.
Okay.
It's just for green pasture.
Okay.
Yes.
Short and sweet. Yes.
Well, also, apart from, for instance, we have other challenge due to lack of infrastructures in regions. We find also a situation whereby people, especially the young generation, they don't want to go and work in remote areas.
Okay.
So as a result, they prefer to work in towns.
Okay.
But I'm sure with time that problem will be solved, because I'm sure government have introduced or is trying to introduce a remoteness allowance to try to attract some of these people into those remote areas.
Okay, okay. Well, with that said, we have come to the end of our show this afternoon. If you have any further queries, our panelists have indicated that you are more than welcome to approach the offices of the Public Service Commission, and there somebody would most likely be able to assist you and give you more detailed answers to your questions. And we would also like at this point to say thank you very much for the two panelists for availing themselves to come and answer some of these questions that are not always easy questions to answer, but that are necessary so that our public is well informed and they know what the processes are. From myself, Shianwa Desire Kahiha, and my production crew, bye-bye.